The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf Dobelli is a powerful guide that explores how our minds often trick us into making irrational decisions. From the small, everyday choices to the big, life-changing ones. In this video, we'll cover 10 of the most important biases from the book, along with real-world examples, so you can learn how to think more clearly and make smarter decisions in your own life. Let's dive in. Survivorship bias. Concept. We focus on successful cases and overlook failures. Example. Think about the dot-com boom of the late 90s. We often hear about companies like Amazon that survived and thrived, but we forget about the countless other tech startups that crashed and burned. By only paying attention to Amazon's success, it's easy to think that starting an online business was an obvious success. In reality, many startups went under due to poor planning or market conditions. Survivorship bias makes us forget the lessons from failure, and it can lead us to unrealistic expectations about our own ventures. Takeaway. Always consider both success and failure to make better decisions. 2. Confirmation bias. Concept. We search for information that supports our existing beliefs. Example. Imagine you're convinced that a specific diet is the healthiest option. When you search online, you end up clicking on articles, research, and testimonies that confirm your view. You might ignore studies that show the diet has risks or doesn't provide all the nutrients the body needs. This is confirmation bias. Only paying attention to what supports your current beliefs. By falling into this trap, you reinforce your existing mindset and avoid considering new, possibly better alternatives. Takeaway. Actively seek information that challenges your beliefs for clearer, unbiased thinking. 3. Anchoring bias. Concept. We rely too heavily on the first piece of information we get. Example. Picture you're shopping for a new car. The first car you see is priced at $50,000. Later you find a similar car priced at $30,000, and it feels like a great deal. However, in reality, the $30,000 car might still be overpriced compared to its market value. The initial $50,000 price anchors your judgment, making the $30,000 car seem much cheaper than it actually is. This bias can lead to poor financial decisions if you don't carefully analyze the actual value. Takeaway. Always evaluate choices based on their own merits, not just initial prices or information. 4. The availability heuristic. Concept. We make decisions based on readily available information or recent experiences. Example. After seeing a story about a plane crash on the news, you might feel anxious about flying, even though statistically, flying is much safer than driving. The crash was shocking, vivid, and memorable, so it sticks with you, making you overestimate the risk of flying. This is the availability heuristic at play. We judge situations based on what's most accessible in our minds, not by facts or probabilities. Takeaway. Be mindful of recent or memorable events when assessing risks or making decisions. 5. Social proof. Concept. We tend to follow the actions of others, assuming they are correct. Example. Imagine you're at a restaurant and see a long line outside. You might think, it must be good if so many people are waiting, even though you haven't checked the menu or reviews. This is social proof, believing that others' actions are correct, so you follow them without considering your own preferences or doing research. The crowd's behavior influences your decision, even though it may not be the best choice for you. Takeaway. Don't simply follow the crowd. Always make decisions based on your own research. 6. Loss aversion. Concept. We fear losses more than we value equivalent gains. Example. You're investing in stocks, and your portfolio loses $500. You feel the emotional pain more acutely than if you had gained $500. As a result, you might hold on to losing stocks for too long, hoping they'll bounce back, even if they're unlikely to recover. The fear of realizing a loss clouds your judgment, making it harder to cut your losses and move on to better investments. Takeaway. Don't let the fear of loss drive poor decisions. Accept losses and move on when necessary. 7. The contrast effect. Concept. We evaluate things in comparison to others rather than in isolation. Example. You go to a car dealership and first see a luxury car priced at $80,000. Then you see a mid-range model priced at $40,000. In comparison, the $40,000 car seems like a much better deal, even though it might still be overpriced for what it offers. The contrast effect leads us to make skewed judgments by comparing options rather than evaluating each one on its own merits. Takeaway: evaluate options individually, not in comparison to one another, for more objective decision-making. Overconfidence bias. Concept: we tend to overestimate our knowledge and abilities. Example: after reading a few articles on stock investing, you feel confident enough to pick individual stocks. You believe you can beat the market despite having limited experience. However, overconfidence bias can lead you to underestimate risks, ignore important details, and make decisions based on unfounded confidence. Over time, this could result in poor investment choices. Takeaway: recognize the limits of your knowledge and remain humble when making important decisions. 9. The halo effect. Concept: our overall impression of someone or something affects how we view their specific traits. Example: you meet someone who is charismatic and charming, and you immediately assume they are also highly intelligent and trustworthy, even though you have no evidence to support that. This is the halo effect, letting a general positive impression of someone influence your judgment of their other traits. It can also work in reverse, where a negative impression skews your view of everything about a person. Takeaway: avoid letting first impressions overly influence your evaluation of others' specific qualities. 10. The endowment effect. Concept: we place higher value on things we own than things we don't. Example: you have an old watch that you no longer wear. When a friend offers to buy it from you, you might ask for more money than it's worth simply because it's yours. The endowment effect makes us overvalue our possessions just because we own them. Even if a similar watch is available for a lower price elsewhere, your attachment to the item inflates its perceived value. Takeaway: be aware of overvaluing your possessions and make rational decisions based on their true worth.